How about this? Let's get started and talk about this first story because it's Friday. The story is stupid and funny at the same time. We have this tweet from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said, "Tired of having to collectively stress about what explosion of hate crimes is happening because some billionaire with an ego problem unilaterally controls a massive communication platform and skews it because Tucker Carlson or Peter Thiel took him to dinner and made him feel special." To which Elon Musk responded, "Stop hitting on me. I'm really shy," and a blushing emoji. Michael Malice, you can see under here, he says he ratioed her in minutes.
And then the response to him was, "So you don't know how the ratio works, got it," and she got ratioed.
So here's the funny thing. Jack Posobiec, I guess, captured what AOC said. I guess some people are saying she deleted it. AOC said, "I was talking about Zuckerberg, but okay." I think she deleted it because she realized she only made it worse.
Yeah.
To be fair, she was talking about Zuckerberg.
You think so?
She says controls a platform and was taken out to dinner by Tucker Carlson or Peter Thiel. Zuckerberg was famously taken out to dinner for some meeting by conservatives, and he currently controls a platform. I just think it's hilarious that Elon Musk threw back in her face what she does, because Ocasio-Cortez famously says, "Stop hitting on me. You're trying to date me." I think it's funny when people criticize AOC, her stands go, "She's not going to date you, bro." It's like, is that your bit? Is that your bit? Because, okay, all right, well, Elon Musk just threw the pie back in her face.
Yeah, also, is Mark Zuckerberg considered right-wing now? Old Mark convincing people to commit hate crimes? What is this?
Well, anybody to
Yes.
the right of Karl Marx is considered.
That's
yeah.
true.
Oh, no. Karl Marx himself is far right.
Oh.
He was racist. He
Oh,
was.
true.
Yeah,
And
well,
a
but here's the
womanizer.
thing, Tim,
and a womanizer.
you have to remember, real racism hasn't been tried yet.
Oh,
If
that's
they
right.
did it the way Marx wanted, it would work.
Oh, yes. It's funny how it's, Russia's coming out saying that they want to denazify Europe or something like that. And then you think about the similarities between the woke cult, critical race, identitarianism, all of this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I understand the similarities. I don't think they're the same. One's more like, I guess, ultra-traditionalist and one's ultra-progressive. One wanted to destroy the culture. One wanted to restore it. But they were both authoritarians who wanted government based on race. And so here we go. I don't see a very large difference between these two groups. Speaking of Karl Marx.
Yeah, no, Karl Marx, he was the absolute worst. And part of why he's so interesting is because when you look at his personal life, you see how unbelievably poorly conducted it was. And it's just the case that when people don't want to live properly, they'll try to create philosophies that justify being a bad person, basically. And that's what Marxism is. And it's just sad to see how many people have bought into it and how much destruction it's caused.
There was Paul Johnson wrote a book called Intellectuals.
Yes.
Where he went into the personal lives of like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Karl Marx and pretty much all these intellectuals. They weren't, predominantly left wing, but he wanted to say like, okay, how well have these people actually lived out their own philosophy? Mm-hmm. And it was incredible. You read about Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the kids that he fathered and immediately threw into some of the worst orphanages in Paris where they basically died of like starvation and neglect. And then Karl Marx, who always said within communism, right, the last phase of capitalism is people will actually pay their employers to work. And that's crazy because that doesn't really happen, except in Karl Marx's personal life, where he actually had a servant that he didn't really pay and repeatedly, I wouldn't say raped, but repeatedly had had an affair with, right? So it was great. He actually had the manifestation of the last phase of what he said capitalism would bring about.
Yeah, well, and this is why you have to be extremely suspicious of people who harp on and on about how they love humanity in this abstract sense.
Yes.
Because very oftentimes they're trying to overcompensate for the fact that they treat everyone in their personal life like absolute garbage, which is fundamentally the only way you really can love humanity is by treating those around you well instead of throwing vague platitudes out there about how much you want world peace and to end poverty, etc.
Somebody posted a photo of Antifa marching, and they were like, "Why wouldn't anyone want to be Antifa?" And I'm like, "Are we doing this again?" He's saying the same thing again. But I just, what I noticed about the photo was that the Antifa guys were really scrawny, like gaunt, like thin. And
What's wrong with that, Tim?
These people haven't lifted a heavy object in their lives.
No.
Not all of them. So I'm sure some have. There are probably some, some guys, I'm not saying literally everyone, but you look at Antifa, they tend to be the, what do they call it, the laptop class? Mm. They're not working class. They get money from sitting around complaining on the internet, either for writing for BuzzFeed or something.
You're really subtweeting me here, man.
And I'm just like, well, look, it's one thing if you are part of the laptop class and you advocate for the workers and you recognize the value of hard work and you're not saying, give me free stuff while I smash your windows.
Yeah.
It's another thing when you don't do any work and then say, I'm the workers of the world. That's me. You should unite with me. I'm like, dude, you don't do work. No. Like marching around and complaining about stuff. sometimes there's an element of work in there. We got to fight for our rights. I get that. But you ain't lifting any rocks or building any walls. You're not growing any crops. It's fascinating how little these people actually know about their whole world.
Well, we're not building walls, Tim, because we believe in bridges. I'm sorry that you don't.
That's right. Now, AOC was a bartender, and everybody makes fun of her for that.
That was the most productive thing for humanity she ever did, was tending bar. And and look, I'm not saying that pejoratively. I'm saying I have bartenders that I know that are really good friends, and they are providing a product or service through voluntary cooperation within the marketplace. God bless you.
That's what I'm saying. Bartenders do actual work.
Yes.
That's the one thing you shouldn't smear her for. Being
Yes.
a politician is really embarrassing. Being a bartender isn't.
Oh, I know.
Exactly.
I'm one.
I
feel horrible about it.
I have voluntarily given bartenders my money.
Yes.
In the past.
Right. I just think it's funny that people found the one thing she was good at to complain about.
Yeah.
It's like, so she actually had a job. She was doing it. She was working class. She was providing relaxation and entertainment to tired individuals. I think bars are fantastic. Why make fun of her for that?
Yeah.
Make fun of her for having an economics degree and not knowing what capitalism is.
Yeah.
Or, for tweeting things.
She knows what
typically.
capitalism. It's mean. That's what capitalism is.
She tweeted.
No, capitalism is when you're a billionaire, actually. You can't be a capitalist if you're not a billionaire.
She posted on Instagram. She was like, people aren't capitalists because they don't have billions of dollars. And it's like, what?
That's how that works. That is how that works.
So did you Google it?
Yeah.
I look, to be fair, though, I can't blame her. These colleges are just garbage.
Oh, one of the biggest eye-opening events for me was I kind of went to college late in life. I was out of the military already. I was like 30. I was in an English class. This is what surprised me. I was in an English class at Northern Virginia Community College, and then all of a sudden the professor pulls out the Communist Manifesto for us to read, because nothing screams English literature like a book written by a German communist. But he comes back the week later and asks the class, like, what do you think of capitalism? The student raises his hand and goes, well, I think capitalism is what's destroying this country. And I just had to stop. I'm like, look, just real quick, can you tell me what you think capitalism is? And he proceeds to go out, well, capitalism is this, this rigid class-based structure where the people that I said, no, I didn't ask what Karl Marx's caricature of capitalism. I said, can you actually give me the definition? And the professor looks over and goes, well, can you? I said, yeah, it's a form of economics where people exchange goods and services voluntarily, and property rights are respected. Okay, we can use that. I'm like, oh, well, thank God we can use the definition of capitalism when we're discussing capitalism. But you're right. That was the point. Like, everyone in that classroom had a version of capitalism taught to them that bore no resemblance to what capitalism actually is as an economic system.
Exactly. The simple definition is it's an economic system built upon private exchange of goods and labor.
Yes.
That's it.
I think she might be complaining about that the problem is actually greed. I mean, maybe capitalism unfettered creates oligarchies of private corporations, which is the problem. So, unfettered of any kind of economic system is dangerous. You always need some sort of regulation. Otherwise, people seize control, will attempt to seize power. But I think it's greed that she's really talking about. But I mean, if you have greed in a communist system, it turns out way worse than greed in a capitalist system, from my experience.
Well, again, referencing Thomas Sowell, he used to always bring this up. He's like, whenever we try to explain greed as the problem for something, Sowell likes to come back and look at it. It's like, okay, great. Go sit on your couch right now and think really greedy thoughts and see what happens. Nothing, right? There's always an action that we have to actually look at and observe to determine how, because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, some of the greediest people on the planet, if you actually look at the definition of greed, which is I want things without actually having to work for those things. I want to be able to take those things from an authoritarian standpoint. That's far more greedy than, hey, I want some stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and produce a bunch of goods and services that people will voluntarily exchange with me on.
Right.
Yeah. And I would agree, Ian, that any system when it becomes unfettered is going to be problematic. And I think the problem is they fail to see that these flaws of human nature are going to exist within any system. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, when you have a greedy communist dictator, I think that's a lot more dangerous than a private individual who happens to be greedy. And often, like you said, what they will refer to as greed isn't always necessarily greedy. Sometimes it is. Like, yeah, a lot of giant corporations are extremely greedy. A lot of actors within the market are greedy. But that's a question of the level of virtue our society has cultivated, not necessarily just the economic system.
Right, because if everyone's greedy, then no one is greedy, relatively, because it's relative. Greed is relative to the system you've set up it to exist within.
Well, even, I don't know if I entirely agree, but even if everyone is greedy, I don't think I don't think any system's going to work if everyone operating within that system is vicious.
Well, like you said, Nick, so greed is more the intention, but you're saying it's the outcome that produces the problem. Is that stealing then? Is she talking about stealing?
Yeah, so here's where I
Yes.
go back to, right? The question is again, people are flawed. I think we can all agree on that. People are flawed. The question is does the economic system you have adopted, what does it encourage or what does it incentivize? Within a capitalist system where essentially I have to protect your property rights and we can only engage in exchange if it's voluntarily and theoretically to mutual benefit, well, then now I have a positive incentive structure. So even if I am really greedy, if the way that I actually get the more money or the more stuff that I want, if the best way for me to do that is providing as many people as possible goods and services that they want, then even if I have a negative intention, I have an economic system that fuels that intention in a positive outworking. If, on the other hand, I'm gaining it by taking your stuff through force and violence, well, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think that produces better results.
So there's another example of this in a certain sense. Scott Pressler, he's well known for registering people to vote, and he's also really well known for cleaning up cities. He went to Baltimore, he went to a bunch of cities, and he just cleaned up garbage. And it was funny. He got a bunch of Trump supporters to go out and clean up garbage, and the communities were like, "Thank you so much for cleaning up and making our neighborhood nice." And he's no problem. We want to show people we're here to do the work to make make everyone's lives better. And then the media smeared him. They were like, "He's just doing this to get Trump votes." And I'm like, "Oh no! Oh, he sure tricked us. He went out and cleaned up a bunch of garbage to convince us that he was a good person." I mean, he did. So in looking at AOC's complaints about capitalism, it's like, shouldn't the attitude when a big business is like, "We're going to make $1 billion by curing diseases," you'd be like, "Oh, okay." Now, I think the real criticism is when these companies don't cure the diseases and when these companies when they say, "Well, we don't want to cure it because these people are customers and we want to keep making money off it."
And it's
the issue is AOC sees that
Yeah.
and says that is all of capitalism.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that is a corruption of the system that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
These offshore bank accounts is another one, because you can't really call it stealing if they set up a loophole for themselves legally and then take the money and put it somewhere where it's not supposed to be. But it is stealing. It's just they just wrote it on paper that this is no longer considered stealing, and then they do it. Mm-hmm. So,
Well,
how do you fix that?
So there was a tweet from Jen Perlman, who we've had on the show. She's progressive. And she said, we got to end these tax loopholes. Billionaires don't pay their fair share. I said, what do you think is fair? Is 55% fair share for billionaires? And she said, I think if we close the loopholes, it would be 25 to 35%, which is actually lowering the tax liability for the wealthy. But I think a lot of these people on the left are actually concerned about the corruption and manipulation of the tax system as opposed to how much they're actually paying. And I completely agree. So maybe if we can have that argument, be like, yes, figure out a way to make sure those who are supposed to pay taxes do pay them, and we can lower the taxes. Sounds good to me, right?
Well,
people shouldn't be committing crimes, and people should have less taxes.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of manipulation within the tax code. And again, I sit on the finance committee. We write the tax code for the Commonwealth of Virginia. And there's a lot of debates in there about tax credits or subsidization or things of that nature. And I think there's a very good argument to be made that no, it's like the tax code should be relatively simple to understand. And it shouldn't be something where you're setting up a system where the people with the best lobbyists get the cutouts. The problem that I have with the whole fair share argument is because they never come back and say, "Oh, this is what a fair share is." Because they don't want to, because they want the argument of the rich aren't paying their fair share, because now they haven't defined what that is. And they're also ignoring the fact that the wealthiest, whatever, half of the country, or the wealthiest 10% of the country pay the vast, vast, vast majority of taxes, especially at the federal level. There's no question. With all the loopholes, with everything, they pay the vast majority of it, and they pay a higher percentage than what they actually control within the economy. That's just a fact.
I just got to tell people, taxes are crazy.
They're insane.
Yes, seriously insane. Anybody who runs a business knows exactly how insane taxes are. Yeah. And a lot of these leftists are people who don't run businesses.
No.
As soon as you start your own business, look at David Hogg.
Yeah.
He tweets like, "Why is it so hard to start an LLC? What's going on with all these regulations?" Yeah.
Hey, Dave, go find a mirror, look in it real hard.
But no, I look, he's a young guy and he didn't know. And he got a cold splash of water in the face. I'm not here to rag on him. I'm here to say, stand alongside me, brother, and let's figure out how to make this easier for Americans to create businesses. The way I see it is, if somebody says, if AOC came to me and said, I think, I just got my paycheck and these taxes are insane, I'd be like, Let's work together on a solution. I'm glad you're finally seeing the problem we're seeing. What can we do to fix it? If somebody is an activist and they're going off the rails, and then something happens to them where they start to realize, I'm not going to rag on them. I'm going to be like, come over and let's do this. Let's fix this problem.
Yeah, well, I think fundamentally the problem is envy. So for all the talk that the left does about how greed is destroying our economy, and in some respects I would argue that it is. I think that an unvirtuous population is a very dangerous thing, and greed is not the only vice that's commonplace in our culture. Now, I would say that generally the market economy gives you more of what the people were already interested in the first place. So it's going to veer off into a negative direction if you don't have a population that has positive values. However,
100%.
But on top of that, I don't think capitalism is perfect. I don't think a market's perfect. There are certain regulations I certainly believe in. But at the same time, it seems to me as if other systems like socialism are literally built atop vice. So while capitalism can allow for greed to flourish, socialism requires envy.
The issue is that these people know communism works, and it works really, really well once you've killed everyone who disagrees with communism. So
you just got to remove that surplus population, and you'll be good to go.
And what happens is you end up with a very, very, very tiny population. So you have to kill a lot of people, which is why they've always done it.
Yeah.
So if you have, because humans are not homogenous, because humans are diverse with different ideas, you'll have this big population, and some are going to dissent. Mm-hmm. So what do these communists always do? Kill them all, and hopefully you keep purging the dissent, and you'll keep your rigid, fear-based economy functioning.
Well, this goes back to Seamus's point as well. I've asked this question before. I'm like, all right, you're a socialist, so you again, capitalism is the private ownership of the means of production and distribution through voluntary exchange. Socialism is the collective ownership of the means of production. Here's my question: you want to be a socialist in a capitalist country, in the United States of America? You can be. You can go get some of your friends right now. You can go get property. You can go share it collectively. You can open up a commune. And not only will I, as a raging capitalist, not bother you, I will fight to lower your taxes. The only thing I ask in return is you can't force me to go with you, and you can't force me to subsidize it. That's it. And that's not good enough.
No.
So they're free to live the way they want in this country. They want to require me to do it.
Right. This is what I always find funny, because Ron Paul said something like, this country allows socialism. They need to just go make their commune, and they'd have it, but they don't do it. And it's because they don't actually want communism. They don't actually want socialism. They want your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why they say we want to seize the means of production. It's like, dude, somebody works really, really hard and builds a farm. What happens? The communists seize the farm because it's the means of production, and then everybody starves. They don't want to do the work. They just want what you got, and they will burn the system down to get it. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.